Hello everyone, thanks for being here. Today we're going to be making some life decisions, but we're going to do it in a way that minimizes our risks while also being the path that our heart wants, the best way forward for us. See, the thing is with life, every moment is like an intersection. You have a new decision to make every second. And at each second, there are all these multiple paths that open up. Any decision that you take right now could lead you to a very different career with, and not just career, but life opportunities, but say, let's, for the context for this conversation, talk about careers. You can have a variety of risks and rewards. I'm going to be considering emotional satisfaction and the financial satisfaction that you get out of any decision that you make as your rewards. And the risks, we'll get into them. I'm Aditi Arya Kotak. I have had a variety of experiences experimenting with careers in my life. I started my first job with EY. I had a corporate career. And I also won the Miss India pageant back in 2015. I represented our country at Miss World back in 2015. And I did a bunch of modeling. I was also a pan-India actor, did quite a few acting gigs. I graduated from Yale University, and now I am a full-time entrepreneur for an education company and a part-time content creator. My journey has not been linear at all. I've had quite a few turns along the way. And I borrowed this decision-making technique, which is called the multi-criteria decision-making. And this is what that process somewhat looked like. Step one is to list all your emotional drivers, all those things that give you intangible satisfaction. This is everything, not money. Step two is to look at all the career options that are open to you. And you have to be extremely unbiased in it, like no sense of judgment. Every career option is open, even if that's something that you've probably not considered before. Step three is to get some weighted, estimated value of how you would draw those emotional satisfactions from that career. Step four would be to estimate the income that you would get from that career path. And then you would just add up the value that you get intangibly and materially, and then you'll compare and choose. But here's the thing, it's very clinical. At the end of the day, I noticed that we all just end up doing what our heart says. And that is okay. You see, in matters of heart and head, the heart always wins. But before I go into how we de-risk the decision that our heart tells us to make, I'll go back into describing this process, because it's not to say that this is a waste. In moments when you decide to go ahead with what your heart says, often our brain ends up reminding us that it's probably a risky option, and that's where anxiety creeps in. Because the moment you take a step forward, somewhere in your brain, you're like, no, but I could have done this, and this is not the right way to do it, and maybe what my mom said about doing that particular degree was better, or maybe I should have done that job instead of this job. And that's where you first go through your intangible drivers and start analyzing your career options one by one. I'll give you my case. For me, creative expression, intellectual stimulation, having a voice that is heard, having an impact on people's lives, having some flexibility of my personal time, and having a sense of adventure and non-monotonous career was very important to me emotionally. And now, this can be different for different people. Some people may not value flexibility of time at all, and some people would probably want a boring but stable life. So this section of your intangible drivers can vary for individuals. But then, the thing about life is that we can't have it all. There are a lot of trade-offs that we have to make, and if we force rank how these drivers are important to us, we are in a better position to be able to trade a few things off against the others. If you tried to make some estimate, say maybe how much am I willing to pay for flexibility of time? Can I lose X amount of salary? Is it that important to me? You sort of make a rough estimate of these trade-offs. And the thing about trade-offs is that they do vary by privilege. So if you do end up having some kind of privilege of some kind, it'll be a little easier for you to make fewer trade-offs. But the formula will still apply because, trust me, at any end of the spectrum, you just can't have it all. Step 2 is to now list all the career options that are open to you. In my case, there were these 5 career options that I saw ahead of me. This is back when I was 20 years old. My first thing was to stick to the analyst job that I had. I had a 3-year undergrad, so the first job that I had was at age 20. And back then, this is what my satisfaction equation looked like for my analyst job path. That job was 0 on creativity, something that I really strongly valued. And it gave me a good amount of intellectual stimulation. So I rated it at 0.75. There was absolutely no voice. I was an early entrant in a company of thousands and thousands of people, and I wasn't really heard as much as I'd like to be. There was some impact on improving lives. It was not a non-profit, but I did feel that my work was adding value and making lives better. But that's why I rated it at 0.25, because I think it could have been stronger. I had reasonable time flexibility. That is when my company was enforcing all kinds of work-life balance arrangements. So I was quite chill with the time. And there was negative adventure. The job was so boring. It was so boring. And I just knew that in my equation on personal satisfaction, this job is not meeting the metrics at all. Then there was this money aspect. I kind of estimated that every 2 years there's a chance of a promotion. With that, there's a chance of a certain percentage salary hike. And if things go well, by the time I retire, there's a certain amount of income that I will generate from this job path. And I knew that it's not likely that I'll get every promotion and every raise. So I estimated based on the competition that I had and the willingness of mine to work hard and how much I actually worked hard to get some level of a probability of success. And some people actually like to add that probability to their satisfaction equation as well. In my case, my career success had nothing to do with my emotional satisfaction. And I did something similar for all these other paths. One path was to get an Indian MBA and fast track my growth. I had a deferred MBA admission from ISB back then. So this was something which kind of opened up pretty soon. The third was that I could let go of that ISB admission, wait a little, get some 3-4 years of work ex and apply for an MBA abroad. One was, and something that I actively considered, was becoming a teacher or work in the non-profit sector as a volunteer teacher. And fifth was to quit my job and become an entrepreneur or artist of some kind. I would believe that the performing arts career that I eventually surrendered to was sort of like option 5. But we'll get to how we get there. So yeah, I did end up not choosing the path that would have given me the maximum value. And I decided to quit my job at some point, and I'll tell you how. But I decided to follow my heart. But here's the thing. If you're someone who is reasonably rational, your brain will start creeping in and telling you that your heart is not guiding you the right way. And that's when anxiety will start creeping in. So what you do is you use that equation right here to sort of just help your brain a little, help your heart convince the brain that the path you're on is the right path, and there are a few things that we can do to tweak things here and there to make it a little better. For me, if I had stuck to the analyst path, I would have probably did some convincing to my heart. I did end up volunteering with an NGO on the weekends, and that gave me a lot of emotional satisfaction. That driver that I had about improving lives, I was able to solve through by doing extra things on the side. So if you feel that your career equation for whatever job path you've chosen is low on your intangible drivers, you can always go for adding some indirect hobbies, indirect work opportunities. There could be initiatives that you take in your job that allow you to have any of those drivers, like having a voice. You could volunteer in some HR-driven project that your company is running. And you could organize all those little things outside of your work that allow for more satisfaction. It could be about risks. What I did before I applied for Miss India was that I applied to Miss Delhi, hung out with the organizers, and really understood what they were looking for in a winner. When you get as much information as you can about your surroundings, you're able to tweak your performance in a way that matches and reduces the risk of that career path that you have chosen. So I not only did this while applying for Miss India, but even after winning Miss India, I actually didn't quit my job for an entire year. Now, this was because at that time I felt like I hadn't fully understood the entertainment sector. My family was not from an entertainment background at all, and I didn't know how hard or easy it is to make it in the movies. And before I quit my job and surrendered to that career, I wanted to understand what the risks are. And I gathered information by doing things like interning with a casting company once I eventually... So I had a deferred admission, so I didn't quit my job right away. I had my job, which I kept for a year until Miss World happened. The first step was to eventually let it go, and the deferred MBA let me feel secure about the possibility that if I ever wanted to pivot, I could always go back to my degree. But then there did come a point where my work was flourishing, and I did that little internship to understand how can I make it flourish a little better. So that added information allowed me to further take the risk and let go of that, what I called a backup option that I had in that MBA at ISB. And the last one is actually money. So I know it's easier said than done, but if you can reduce your dependence on money somehow, that really frees your bargaining power up to negotiate for other things that satisfy you. So it is possible that you were able to either through the savings that you made, maybe 10 years of crazy work that you did, attain a sense of financial security, and that allowed you to take riskier bets. Another would be that you just decided that it's okay, I don't want to participate in that materialistic race of wanting everything. And a lot of times people get a lot of success the moment they stop thinking from that mindset and start doing the things that they love, and because they do it out of passion. In spite of taking all the decisions and all the right steps, there could be a moment where the world still changes and the path that you found yourself on ends up looking like a dead end. The thing is, any decision that we make today is based on the information that we have in this very moment. And that's all our job is, to make sure that given the best information that I can gather in this moment, I'm making my best decision. But the world is so fickle, it changes so fast. And it's possible that the information upgrades and you find yourself in a path where you feel that if I continue here, I will not get the same kind of satisfaction that I had initially planned in that satisfaction equation that I had drawn. So what do? Do not fall into the sunk cost fallacy. In economics, there's this term called sunk cost. Sunk cost is a cost that you have incurred which may not be useful to give you results in the future. And the sunk cost fallacy is a tendency where people think that because they've put in this effort of time and money, they can't undo that and just move to something else. It's a sunk cost because it's not going to give them better results to stay on the path, but they feel like they have committed their time and energy into something and therefore they just can't leave it. But sometimes, even if starting from scratch, the other path could be better because the world just doesn't look the same anymore. And if that is the case, you should definitely make the move. Do not fall into this trap. I did that when I decided that I've had enough of the entertainment career. I did all those acting gigs that I told you about, but beyond a point I felt that the satisfaction that I was drawing from those experiences, including a sense of adventure, was dying out because my work was getting more monotonous and there were just so many things that I discovered along the way with added information that were not contributing to my happiness. And that's when there were two things that came really handy. One was all these series of safety nets that I had built in the past. It was not just my deferred MBA admission at ISB, but it was also the GMAT that I had already taken and was sitting on. I knew that I could apply to a good business school at any moment and hopefully with some hard work get through. And that's what I did. I eventually did my MBA at Yale University. And then there's a sense of perpetual learning. I would have not even thought about moving to a different path if I did not have the friends and all those non-fiction books that I read and all those newspapers that I read throughout that journey, which probably my peer group at that time in the entertainment sector was not actively reading up on. Having a wider social network of people with career paths and interests that are different than yours allows you to see the world outside of that bubble. And if a situation comes where your chosen path is dying out, maybe your friends who are in a completely different field can help you use your transferable skills and absorb you in that sort of a career. You won't even know that opportunity exists if you don't have the sense of lifelong broad learning. So these are the two things that you should do no matter which path you're on. Have just an eye out for safety nets and a constant fetish for learning. And one more important thing. A lot of us, especially at the age group that most of you here are, we've not committed to our true passion. We don't know what we really, really, really want in life. So it's very hard for us to go ahead and do what people say about just follow your passion, because I'm good at a bunch of things. How do I find it? Just stick to this happiness equation that we decided earlier. Have some safety nets, perpetual learning, like just remember those equation pieces. But in addition to that, remember to constantly explore different careers and work hard while at it. One thing that I have noticed is that life is not a linear journey at all. Today, after all my experiments, I found my calling as an entrepreneur in the education sector. Today, I help people right from grade 8 up till undergrad, masters and PhDs to map out what they want from their careers and apply to the right universities and find the appropriate education journeys for them. And one thing that I have observed from all their experiences and stories is that they've not all wanted the same thing. That goes back to those emotional satisfaction drivers. If everyone wanted everything, life would be a linear rat race, but it's not. What is your true happiness? Something that maximizes your goals, something that maximizes the best outcome that you can get in life, will be completely different from someone else sitting right next to you. And where you are right now, maybe in a classroom of 30 people, you might think that some are doing better than you because they've had either a different start point or different goals. But if you really do some soul searching, you'll identify that your goals could be completely different, and the decisions that you have to take at that point onwards are completely different. So one, life is not a linear journey, and it doesn't start with a single start point. You have even now to continue choosing all the decisions that you will make that will set you on the path that your heart tells you to go to. But every time your brain interferes and tells you that that's probably a little too much of a risk, you know what to do. Thank you.